All right, YouTube, this is Detroit's HPTV coming at you on a Saturday morning. We're going to talk about today on the channel, we're going to talk about Trump's interview at the National Association of Black Journalists. Now, Trump was invited there, and they invited Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris been saying that Trump didn't want to debate her or he was scared to debate her, but ironically, she didn't show up. But that's not even the news part of the story. The news part of the story is how he was treated and disrespected. And you can see the partisanism in the situation because the hostility that they showed the former president is profound. Now, we've had other videos where we talked about the disrespect and the face of disrespect that Black women in media have put on. Why would you disrespect the man that you don't even know personally, that you invited on your show for views and ratings, as if you had some type of gotcha moment or trap for him? But Trump is going to surprisingly say out loud what we all been thinking and what we all know. Kamala Harris is not Black. And they say, why is it an issue? You tell me, why is it an issue? Any person who would lie to you about who they are and their own heritage, you can't trust anything they say. You know what I mean? And there's a saying in the ghetto, in the hood, everybody want to be Black until it's time to be Black and you start having Black people problems. But what you're going to see is the disrespect coming from these Black women, and it's for no reason. And they think they got an I gotcha moment when they try to ask Trump, is Kamala Harris a DEI hire? We already know that. They said that in the beginning. Joe Biden said that. He said he was going to hire a Black woman. He didn't say what no specificity was other than the fact that she would be Black. But we're going to watch the clip because the disrespect and the gender politics is so strong. They wanted to be able to call him a racist and a misogynist. But look how rude they were to Trump. But he took it. So this for fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act for commentary and educational purposes. Watch this dialogue.
With former President Donald Trump, we ask that the professionalism that we all bring to our newsrooms and workplaces every day is the same professionalism that is maintained in this arena. Please welcome to the stage.
Now, have you ever heard a commentator have to tell the people that we're going to be respectful today? You know, that's basically what he's saying. We're going to be respectful today. We're not gonna do anything off the cuff and be totally disrespectful. He had to warn them. But look, they did it anyway.
ABC News senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott. Semaphore political reporter Kadia Goba. And anchor of the Faulkner Focus and co-host of Outnumbered on Fox News, Harris Faulkner.
NABJ. Mic's on? Hear me? There we go. Test, test, test. Good afternoon, NABJ, and welcome to a conversation with former President Donald Trump. This discussion continues a decades-long tradition during election years of inviting journalists to discuss the policies and their impact with the candidates who are running for president and the impact of those policies, especially in Black communities. Former Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton have attended the NABJ conventions either as presidents or as presidential candidates in past years. NABJ is currently in conversation with
The way they use race, you would think that Trump and Kamala was just running to be the president of Black people. You know what I mean? They play race so much.
President Kamala Harris's team to schedule a Q&A either in person or virtually in September. As journalists, we use opportunities like these both to inform our reporting, but also to help voters understand the choices that they face in a consequential and historic election year. NABJ has partnered with PolitiFact to fact check this conversation in real time. You can access that feed on social media using the hashtag NABJFactCheck. Again, the hashtag is NABJFactCheck. We have a lot to get to, and we do not want to waste any time. So let's bring out the former president of the United States, the Republican nominee for president, former President Donald Trump. Thank you. Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving.
I want to watch how quickly they show their fangs. Watch how quickly they go at Trump with their rhetoric. It's going to be almost instantaneous. But watch his comeback.
Us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today.
Now listen, we're going to address the elephant in the room. A lot of people thought it wasn't appropriate for you to be here, even though you're ex-president running for president again. And this is a journalist convention that interviews nominees. Watch the disrespect.
You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe Black district attorneys. You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist.
They talking about the journalists that he told to go back where they from. That's Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Rashida Tlaib is out here burning flags in Detroit. Ilhan Omar is telling her people that she represents Somalia and not American interests. So what's wrong with telling them, look, if y'all don't like the country, go back to where y'all from. But check out how rude this lady is.
Your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the Black population of this country. I've done so much for the Black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for Black workers and Black entrepreneurs. I've done so much. And, and I say this, historically, Black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke. And I saved them and I gave them long-term financing and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here.
Who else think that was a very rude introduction? Right? She went straight in talking about the elephant in the room and hurled all these allegations at him. But why they never questioned Joe Biden about this? If you don't vote for me, you ain't Black, or the crime bill, or the super predators that need to be brought to heel, or turning the schools into racial jungles. Why haven't anybody ever asked Joe Biden why he said that Black people would turn the schools into racial jungles? Or why did anybody ask Kamala why she said that Joe Biden was a racist in her debate, and then she lied about saying She was being bused as a child in California, but come to find out, she never went to school in California. She was going to school in Canada. So, I mean, these liars is ridiculous.
And I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said you can't do it with Zoom. Well,
now think about that. They got Trump there knowing Kamala wasn't coming. After Kamala has been on the campaign trail talking about Trump, is scared to debate her, and he's running scared. So they set him up for this ambush to get some off the cuff remark or a got you moment that frustrated the man, but it didn't work. I think he's handling this excellently.
Where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something
Mr.
was
President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
if
it's
you
a
could answer the
very
question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
believe that
answered
Black
the question.
voters should trust you with another
I
4
have
years.
been the best president for the Black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the
answer.
Voting Rights Act?
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a...
She don't even know her facts. Lyndon B. Johnson was forced to sign that Civil Rights Act, but it was Republicans that drafted and pushed it through Congress and legislation. Lyndon Johnson, he didn't draft that. That wasn't his idea. The Republicans pushed that through. Just like the Republicans under Lincoln freed the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation. Why the Democrats fought tooth and nail to keep black people on the plantation, just like they're doing right now.
Hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words.
then. Would you give me a definition?
DEI.
Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct question.
define it for me if you
I
would.
just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always identified as a Black woman.
I respect either one. I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't.
You see how the interviewer lied with all this footage of Kamala Harris saying she was the first Indian senator, she was the first Indian running for vice president. All this footage out here of her proclaiming her Indian nationality. And this interviewer says she's always been Black. The disingenuousness of this interview and the lying is just ridiculous. I mean, if Black people are going for this, then they brainwashed and they just want to be slaves. Identity politics is destroying this country.
Because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe
I think somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
I really don't know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length, and we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that.
Well, you told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today. I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we are divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is.
Black jobs, in case you don't know, because I'm from the black community, black jobs used to be the painting jobs, the roofing, cement finishing, road work, jobs with the city that they all of a sudden can come over here and get, even though they can't read or write, but they can still breeze through an application and get hired before somebody black in the city. Think about that.
All right. And
Mr.
they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in and they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border. So she was a border czar.
Let me ask you a question. Be logical. If they are dumping the bulk of the illegal immigrants in black communities, then who are they competing for in those communities, and whose jobs usually were those in the community if they dumping them all in the black community? I mean, this is a no-brainer, and they want to, they want to nitpick and try to find something so they can say, oh, this is a gotcha moment, but they really look ridiculous.
He's done a horrible job. These people are coming into our country and they're taking black jobs and Hispanic jobs. And frankly, they're taking union jobs. Unions are being very badly affected by all of the millions of people that are pouring into our country. And one thing, as we discussed, many of these people are coming in from mental institutions, from prisons, from jails. They're gang members in other countries. Other countries are setting loose their prisoners. They're opening up their prisons and their mental institutions, and they're taking their bad people, drug dealers, gang members, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their crime rate is going down, and our crime rate is going to be a disaster.
Mr. President, I want to get into how you address some of the issues with black communities. And I say that plural because we live in communities of color that are different. We're not all the same. We don't vote the same. We don't think the same. It's not monolithic. So as you come here today, I want to talk about something that bursts. And this is the weight of the inflation on this country right now. The nonprofit Money Management International recently released data from its mid-year analysis that we have found a 52% rise in people who are seeking counseling for being in credit debt. They're paying for food that is sky high on their credit cards, and now they can't pay that off. The credit counseling nonprofit MMI, as I said, is saying now that they've seen surges that they haven't seen since we were in a pandemic of people in financial trouble. Much of that falls on the shoulders of single moms, single black moms, when you look statistically. Yeah. How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all, it's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment, because I guess, this woman was unable to get the right equipment. But it's very hard for me to hear you, but I can hear every other word.
You see how they set him up? Told him Kamala was going to be there. Made him wait 35 minutes, then bad equipment. They wanna upset him so he can say something that they can use as ammunition against him. I mean, this is a dirty trick. Just think about it. They said that Kamala was going to be there for a debate. They came in there 35 minutes late. The equipment don't work. He can't hear Faulkner. And they asked him the rudest questions in the rudest way. This was an ambush.
It's very difficult, actually. But so I don't know if they can fix it or do something with it. But I'll do the best I can with it. The inflation is absolutely destroying our middle class, our working class, virtually every class. Inflation is a disaster in our country. Inflation is a country buster. It breaks every country. And we had, in my opinion, the worst inflation we've had. They say it's 58 years, but I think it's much more than that. It's been devastating. And if you just take a look at a lot of things they don't include, like interest rates. Interest rates went from 2.4% to 10%, and you can't get the money. People can't buy houses. They no longer have the American dream. Young people, young black people, they don't have the American dream anymore. They can't buy a house. They can't borrow the money because of the cost of the money. They can't buy it because of the cost of housing, because of the cost to build it, because of inflation. Inflation is a disaster, and it's destroying our country, and it's destroying the black community probably as much or
So what do
more
you do?
than any.
What's your plan?
You know what we have to do? We have to bring down the cost of energy, and that's going to bring down the cost of inflation. This was all started with a bad energy policy by Joe Biden. By the way, just if I might, I was running against a man named Biden. You probably saw that. And he was losing very badly in the polls. And then he had a rather bad debate. I would say it was a bad debate. I would say it was one of the worst debates in history. And his poll numbers crashed. And instead of saying, you know, let's keep going and maybe something happens the other way, they said, oh, we're going to replace him. Let's just replace him. That's like you're in a fight, a prize fighter's in a fight. He's not doing well. You say, let's bring in another fighter. So our whole campaign was steered toward him, and now we have to steer toward him. But ultimately, it's the same because they have bad policy. They have policies of open borders, unbelievable open borders, horrible energy policies. They want to get rid of, as you say, gasoline in cars. They want to get rid of oil. They want to get rid of efficient.
I want to ask you guys a question. Do you really think it's possible that the left can actually win with misogyny and racism claims? If you attack Kamala, then you're a racist or you're a misogynist. And women seem like they would vote against God if they thought it would give them some power. They don't care about none of her policies or what a Kamala presidency may do to the black community. They will vote just to be in control, just to be dominant over men. A lot of these women. So, do you think that there's a possibility that they could actually pull it off and win with identity politics and gender politics? But that would be the end of this country for sure. This country would collapse under the weight of a Kamala presidency.
Efficient heating,
Mr. President.
environmentally, what they're doing is killing our country. They're absolutely destroying our country. But the inflation is the thing that's hurting the black worker, the black population, and every other population within our country. Inflation is the worst it's been, I think, in over 100 years. And they'll fact check it. They'll say it's only 58. Whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers. They don't add the really bad numbers, and you can check that too. But inflation, Harris, is absolutely destroying this country and the people in our country. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
President, can I ask you another question
Yes,
that is also impacting Black Americans?
And that's very clear now.
I'm sorry?
It's very clear. I hear you.
Okay. So Sonia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed Black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You've said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win. Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water, right?
Yeah, well, police. Police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay.
But again,
they're going to be charging the officer. I guess they're charging the officer.
So why should he receive immunity?
Well, he might not. I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago, July 4th week.
Just so people don't know, there's a clause anytime there's immunity. You only have immunity if you don't violate a constitutional right of a person. Once you are found that you are violating the constitutional right, you automatically lose immunity. That's the Constitution. So for them having immunity gives them leeway to not be scared to actually do their job. But once they are found guilty of a constitutional violation, then immunity is gone.
And
Just so
had
you know.
117 shootings and 17 deaths. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back. In this particular case, I saw something that didn't look good to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So, can you get a little more specific back to the immunity question? Who would make those
Well, right now,
distinctions?
for the most part, people are protected by their unions, by their police unions, or by their police departments. But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime, or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine
You
an
go
innocent
after
mistake?
somebody and it's a very close call and it's very dangerous. And they have the policeman's life and woman is a very difficult thing because sometimes you have less than a second to make a life and death decision. And sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
So I want to follow up really quickly. I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people that have weaponized our justice system. I've been prosecuted. I just won the big case in Florida. Everyone said that was the biggest case. That was the most difficult case. And I just won it. Now, Biden has a similar case, except much worse. I was protected under the Presidential Records Act. Biden wasn't because he wasn't president at the time. And he had 50 years worth of documents. And they ruled that he was incompetent and therefore he shouldn't stand trial. And I said, isn't that something? He's incompetent and he can't stand trial. And yet he can be president. Isn't that nice?
Mr. President,
but they released him on the basis that he would.
I'm going to put, well, you can find the whole video out there. But what do you think about the ambush? Or did you think that it wasn't orchestrated, that they didn't deliberately lie about Kamala coming, or they weren't deliberately 35 minutes late on purpose? All these things were done as political theater. But the elephant in the room really is Kamala a Black American? If you think so, put a 1 in the comments, 1 in the chats. Well, this is Saturday morning. Signing to you out of Detroit. This is Detroit's HPTV. Keep your head on the swivel. Support Detroit's Black Thought and Ash Collective out of Detroit. Peace. Salute to all patriots. Like, share, and subscribe.